Muy buenas noches, siendo puntualmente las 20 horas, les saluda la magíster Romina Bento en calidad de moderadora de esta defensa de Tesina. Se da inicio a la defensa virtual, acorde a la resolución número 1212/2025, que fija la conformación de mesa examinadora de la Tesina con el título Attitude of High School Students in a Paraguayan Private School Towards Learning the English Language, a cargo de las autoras Alessandra Gulino, Miño y Fátima Elizabeth Villalba Acosta, de la carrera de Lengua Inglesa del Instituto Superior de Lenguas, el día de hoy jueves 2 de octubre del 2025. En calidad de miembros del Tribunal Examinador, saludo a mis colegas, el profesor Leonardo Sandoval en calidad de presidente.
Buenas noches a todos.
Y a la profesora magíster Maula Sarimbén. Buenas noches, profesora.
Buenas noches.
En calidad de miembro de la mesa evaluadora, así como la que les habla. Postulantes universitarias, buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Well, okay, so now we proceed to English. Ladies, you have 30 minutes for your defense, and then we'll ask some questions, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will share the presentation now. Let me know if you can see it properly.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start in 1 second. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I hope you had an amazing start of the day, and I hope that we can finish it on a good note as well. Today, my project partner, Alessandra Gulino, and I, Fátima Villalba, are here today to defend our thesis titled Attitude of High School Students in a Paraguayan Private School Towards Learning the English Language.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here and thank you for your time. We will first go over the overview. First, we have introduction, then literature review, then methodology, results, conclusion and recommendations, and lastly, acknowledgements. Introduction. Context and importance. In Paraguay, English is studied as a foreign language in addition to Spanish and Guarani. However, not all students engage with it in the same way. Their attitudes, whether positive or negative, play a key role in their motivation, participation, and overall success. Research questions. So our general question was, what are the cognitive, emotional, and behavioral attitudes of high school students towards learning the English language? And the specific ones were, what is the cognitive component of high school students' attitude towards learning the English language? What feelings do students possess regarding learning the English language? What are the students' dispositions regarding the learning the English language? To what extent are attitudes towards English language learning descriptively different based on students' gender at Centro Educativo Los Laureles High School? Purpose and objectives. So the main purpose of this study was to investigate students' attitudes and how factors like motivation, gender, and emotions affect their learning. This will help develop strategies to create more engaging English programs. This study matters because understanding attitudes allows schools to improve teaching strategies and curriculum. At Centro Educativo Los Laureles, the results can directly help teachers engage students more effectively, ensuring better learning outcomes.
Thank you, Ale. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about our literature review. First, we have a quick overview. As you can see on the slide, we have the main authors that we reviewed for this part of our project, which were Abilin et al. 2024, Mufta 2022, Havok and Mayar 2018, and Chang et al. 2023. Overall, research showed that positive attitudes lead to higher motivation, engagement, and achievement, whereas negative attitudes lead to disengagement and low performance. In Paraguay, especially as we already have Guarani and Spanish in use, attitudes play a decisive role given our context, and it's very important to understand how important attitudes from our students are in order to create a curriculum that it's fitted for them. Then we have the tripartite model of attitudes, which shows that attitudes have three dimensions. The cognitive dimension, which is all about beliefs about English, like is it useful for me? Is it valuable for me? The affective dimension, which involves all about feelings. Is it enjoyable? Is it anxiety inducing? And the behavioral dimension, which talks about the actions, involves the participation during classes, the effort put for homework and assignments. And this model overall explains how they interact between each other and how important are they for learning. Then we have some of the theories of attitudes that we reviewed, which were the theory of planned behavior by Axon 1999, which explains that attitudes plus norms plus perceived control can predict behavior. Cognitive dissonance theory by Festinger, that suggests that students adjust attitudes to match behaviors. Then the social learning theory, which suggests that students adopt attitudes by observing their teachers or peers during each class. And lastly, the elaboration likelihood model by Perry and Cachopo, 1996, which suggests that lasting attitudes form only when students process learning deeply. And all of this is important to know as well while making the curriculum. Then we have the attitudes and particularly learning English. Our attitudes are directly linked to motivation, which can be intrinsic or extrinsic. As you may know, intrinsic, it's motivation that comes from within, that comes from genuine desire to know the language, whether it is out of interest or just to achieve a goal. And extrinsic, which comes from exterior motivation, of course, like for example, getting a good grade, getting the approval of a parent, or for a job, for example. Then we have engagement, which it's all about participation during classes and the persistence of the student and the outcomes, the achievement and proficiency of the language. So, as you may know, negative perceptions are equal to low motivation and avoidance, while positive perceptions are equal to persistence and better results. And lastly, there were some theoretical models that we also talked about in our literature review, which were the ABC model, the affective, behavioral, and cognitive dimensions that all must be addressed, the tripartite or multi-component models, which emphasizes how feelings, beliefs, and behaviors influence each other, which means that if, for example, they don't believe the lessons or the language in particular is important for them to go through life, or they don't find it valuable, in consequence, they wouldn't really think, it's important. They wouldn't participate. They wouldn't really be open to getting the knowledge from the language. And lastly, the dual process model, which suggests that attitudes form both consciously and unconsciously.
Thank you, Fatima. Now we will go over the methodology. So for participants, there were a total of 85 high school students from Centro Educativo Los Laureles involved. 48% of them were male, 52% of them were female, and they were mostly aged around 16 and 17 years old, being the 73% of the total. And 36% of them were from first year, 41% from second year, and 22% from third year. School context. So, Centro Educativo Los Laureles is a private school in Paraguay, Asunción, and English there it's taught as a foreign language. And this provided us a unique context for studying students' attitudes towards learning the English language. For data collection, we used a structured questionnaire adapted from previous research, and it measured three dimensions of attitudes: cognitive, emotional, and behavioral, and it was through a Likert scale format. The survey was distributed digitally using Google Forms, and students accessed it by a QR code that was projected in the classroom board. Ethical concerns guided the entire process. Students and parents received clear information about the study and gave informed consent. Their responses remained anonymous and confidential, and participation was voluntary, and all students were treated fairly throughout the research.
Well, now I'm going to talk about the results that we had from our questionnaire. Before we start with this section of the presentation, I just wanted to clarify that, as you may know, we won't be able to show the whole questionnaire as it is very extensive. It's over 30 items. So I'm going to go over the weakest points and the weakest points and the strongest points from each dimension. First, I'm going to talk about the bullet points, and then I'm going to explain each graphic. So, cognitively, we received the answer from students that there is a high comprehension. 80% understand the teacher and written texts. The teacher meaning when the teacher speaks in English. Then we also had that visual aids are effective. 75% reported better understanding with images. And one of the weakest points was dialogue creation, and the analytical skills were more moderate. So, as you can see on the first graphic, I easily understand my teacher when she speaks in English. I also wanted to apologize as these answers are in Spanish because we weren't able to change them because of some settings. So blue would be never, red would be almost never, orange sometimes, green would be almost always, and lastly, purple would be always. As you can see, for the answers, we got over 35%, almost 40, uh, 35 students, almost 40, which answered almost always, and 30 which answered always. It is easier for me to understand when my teacher uses pictures to present the lesson. As you can see, over 45 students answered almost always, and 25 answered always. Now we're going to see the graphic for the weak points. Weakest points doesn't always mean that most answers were negative. In this case, it was just like the answers were mostly ambiguous, or of course, a little negative, like never or almost never. So I create dialogues in English while respecting the grammatical order of the language. Most answers we got were almost always and ambiguous, answering sometimes. And I analyzed the activities given in the English subject, which were also sort of ambiguous. Over 30 answered sometimes, and over 20 answered almost never. Now, emotionally speaking, songs were shown to be a strong motivator. 60 plus percent say songs encourage learning. For the positive attitudes, majority see English as important as other subjects. However, for the weaker area, only part of the group feels motivated by each class session. As you can see here, songs in English motivate me to keep on learning the language. Over 30, over 25 students answered always, and over 20 answered almost always. I consider learning English as important as other subjects. Over 40 answered always, and 30 answered almost always. However, when talking about curiosity and motivation during each class, we got mostly ambiguous answers. Over 35 answered sometimes, and over 15, sorry, being 19, answered almost never. Then we have the behavioral component. Most of the group answered that there was an eagerness to learn English. 73% reported consistent willingness. For the participation section during classes, the answers were mixed. About half engaged actively, others only sometimes. As we saw before, multimedia use is very important for each class as it boosts interest and participation. However, when talking about homework, the motivation was lower. There was a lower engagement, and with the commitment, 74% were aware that they should commit to learning English. Here we can see the item which was I am very eager to understand and learn English lessons. Most answers, a good majority was ambiguous. Then over 25 answered always, and over 15 answered almost always. I voluntarily participate in every English class. As you can see, was very mixed. A good portion of the students answered sometimes. English class is interesting when using multimedia materials like PowerPoint and videos. So you can see that over 25 answered almost always, as well as sometimes, and 20 answered always. The English homework I do at home motivates me to complete it correctly. Here you can clearly see that there was a big portion which were, so to say, negative answers. Over 15 answered, approximately 19 answered never, 16 answered almost never, and over 25 answered ambiguously saying sometimes. And for the last part of the results, we have the gender-based analysis. As you can see in this graphic, this data represents percentages of positive responses across the three dimensions. So, females, as you can see, scored higher in all dimensions. For example, cognitive. Females gave 82% of positive answers, while male students were 75%. For the emotional dimension, females were 88%, while males were 70%. And for the last part of the questionnaire, which was the behavioral dimension, females scored 83%, while male students scored 77%. And this pattern is consistent with other studies that we reviewed before.
Conclusion and recommendations. Our results show three clear patterns of behavior that indicate English learning benefits students.
I'm sorry,
I'm
Ale.
gonna
Ale, we're losing
I'm gonna
you.
let her go. Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. I think her internet fell because the messages aren't getting to her. Um, Professor, would you like me to continue for her, or should we? Can we wait?
Let's wait a little bit.
Okay,
We
sure.
have time. Maybe she
Sure.
reboots her connection and everything works.
Su llamada será transferida.
Well, I tried to call her. I don't know if you could hear that. The call didn't get in. Oh. I'm
Maybe
gonna
she
wait. Let me know if you
maybe she doesn't have
prefer
her
me to.
phone with her or she's busy trying to reboot her connection, so let's just give
I,
her a few minutes and wait.
sure. Okay, she's coming. Sorry.
My internet. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll continue. Okay.
I was in socio-demographic insights, Fatima.
Ah, sure.
So demographically, the
Ale,
sample was
Ale,
balanced.
I'm sorry. Actually, we lost you when you started to explain. So can you please go over the previous
Ah,
slide? I think it will be
I'm
better.
sorry. I'm
That's okay.
sorry. I'm so
I
sorry.
didn't want to stop you because I thought it was just a glitch in the connection, but then we lost you. So why don't you go
Yes,
ahead and start with that section again? It's going to be clearer that way. Okay.
yes. So, main findings. Our results showed three clear patterns. Cognitively, students demonstrate a solid foundation. They report better understanding of spoken and written English when lessons include visual aids, and emotionally, motivation and enjoyment are high. Students respond very positively to culturally rich materials such as English songs and opportunities for self expression. And behaviorally, classroom engagement and informal participation are strong. Over half said they almost always or always contribute to discussions, but we observed a gap when tasks become more demanding. Only about one third report consistently completing homework or verb memorization. These mixed results point to real potential but also to areas of improvement. Sociodemographic insights. Demographically, the sample was balanced. 52% were female and 48% were male, and most students were aged 15 to 17. Female students scored higher across cognitive, emotional, and behavioral measures, while older students from 16 to 17 reported slightly more confidence in cognitive tasks. Emotional motivation stayed high across all ages, and in practice, these patterns suggest benefits from tailoring classroom strategies by gender and by age group to close performance difference and to reinforce confidence in younger learners. Recommendations for further studies. For future research, the study points three priorities. First, examine socioeconomic influences by comparing private and public schools across Paraguay, since our sample is only about one private school. Second, use longitudinal designs to see how attitudes change over years and what sustains motivation. And third, study teacher attitudes and training, how teacher methods affect students' outcomes.
Now I'm going to give some practical classroom suggestions. Um, for, for example, we start with the use of multimodal and visual materials regularly. As we saw, that is very engaging for high schoolers in this case. And also, it would be very important, in my opinion, to increase culturally relevant activities, such as, for example, obviously, it doesn't mean to do this every single class, every single time that they have English classes. But I think that for high schoolers, sometimes it is hard to get their attention. They have a lot of things in mind. In this case, we went to a school, so they have other subjects that they have to take care of. And I think it would be nice so to add, for example, at least once a week at the beginning or at the end, for example, new songs, new songs, but also, of course, being careful because it has to be suitable for everyone. And of course, it cannot be just like any type of song. Or, for example, self expression activities in order to make them feel more comfortable in class and more interested for and more motivated for each new topic, for example. And it would be also great to design scaffolds to improve homework and memorization completion using scaffolding techniques with short and more frequent assignments while also practicing working in group, and also doing and lastly, also to consider gender tailored supports because as we saw before, female students scored higher. So maybe that could be due to different reasons and to take that into account while planning the classes, the lessons, trying to find topics that are interesting for both groups that would be interesting for everyone, and also try to look for equal participation during classes. And now we have our closing and takeaway. What we got from this is that students show strong potential for English learning when, of course, using instruction that is engaging, multimodal, and culturally relevant for them. And the next step would be to expand studies beyond one private school to map Paraguay's broader reality. It could be even, of course, public schools, high schoolers, then expand to maybe younger students as well. Thank you. Now, before we close, I just wanted to say that we would like to express our sincere gratitude to the members of the evaluation committee for their time and valuable feedback. We also extend our thanks to our tutor, Professor Valentina Canese, which couldn't be here, but we're incredibly thankful for her constant guidance and support throughout this process.
Finally, we are grateful to our professors, classmates, and families for their encouragement, patience, and trust, which made this research possible. Thank you. Now we
And
are
now
ready
we're
for your
ready.
questions.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies. So, Mr. President, would you like to do the honors?
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Bento and students Fatima, Villalba, and Alessandra Gulino. So, well, we've got a couple of questions. The first one, in your literature review and now in the presentation, you talk about the theories of attitudes. You examine some of them. Could you please, both of you can actually answer the question, but could you elaborate more on the theories of attitude, please?
Let me go to that part if you don't mind.
Yes,
We
of
can.
course.
I don't know if you can see me. I can't see anyone.
Yeah, we can see you.
We can
Okay.
see. So,
Yeah.
for example, we have the social learning theory, which emphasizes the role of observation, in this case, imitation modeling in classes. And I think that is very important to take into account while creating the curriculum because sometimes professors or teachers don't really take into account that also the environment for students is very important for their learning experience. And then as well, the different theories such as the cognitive dissonance that refers to students adjusting their attitudes to match how they behave during classes, and as well as the Lauraxian likelihood model, which explains that in order to get a great experience, you have to understand the language and this learning experience deeply in order to have develop lasting attitudes for that. And I don't know if Alessandra has anything to add to that.
No, but I wanted to say that we used the three component theory ABC model for this because we wanted to see the affective, behavioral, and cognitive dimensions of students to find better results. So we focused on that.
Okay, thank you. And then I was checking on page 64. You got the summary key findings. Yeah, percentages of positive response across. 1 second. Yeah, it's a summary of findings broken down by gender, right? So boys and girls. I think this is quite relevant for the study. So I just would like to know, how do you actually get these numbers that are depicted in this summary or in this graph, actually?
Do you mean the percentages?
Yeah.
It's all from the questionnaire that we did with students, with the 85 students from Centro Educativo Los Laureles.
Yes, because we also asked for them to say whether they were male or female.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you also mentioned in the methodology part that
Yes.
you use means and,
Quantitative.
yeah, and it's a standard deviation. So if you use them, I would like to know why the report doesn't show, the means and the standard deviation for these 3 dimensions.
The results actually reflect the percentages for all the dimensions. We were just doing a summary here because our questionnaire was kind of long. It was of 33 questions, so we couldn't include everything. But yes, we have results for the 3 dimensions.
Yeah, but I just want to know, because when you use statistical
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
figures, it's very important to add the means and
percentages.
standard deviations. I'm not talking just the presentation, but also in your paper, and especially if you say that you use means and standard deviation, and it's very important for other researchers to have those numbers to know more or work out better the actual results. So I just wanted to know why they were not included in the in your numbers, in your graph and everything.
I am pretty sure it is in our thesis, in the PDF,
Okay.
but
And
just not here.
the last question is, you mentioned, or you talked about the importance. I mean, based on the results, there is a difference between boys and girls regarding these dimensions. I just would like to know why you think girls achieve higher scores.
I think that maybe their curriculum is more focused on girls. We don't actually know why, but I think it's more focused on girls. Maybe the material they're giving, it's more for girls.
I would say that maybe the topics in the materials used are not really of interest for boys. And regarding, for example, the participation during class, if a teacher, for example, sees, oh, they are always participating, okay, I'm gonna make them participate more. Sometimes they don't take into account the group that doesn't participate during classes. So that, of course, changes for that group how they feel about learning the language, and that would of course change whether they're how they feel, their beliefs about it, because they're not getting enough attention, for example, from the teacher in this case. So I think that would be maybe some of the factors, because we weren't able to, of course, go over the curriculum from the teachers.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lisa Limbem.
Thank you.
Yes. I also wanted to know about the gender difference, but you have already answered that question. Um, However, you mentioned that there was a difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. You mentioned something about songs and some kind of topics that generated a stronger emotional engagement, but this was not consistent. I mean, when you talked about regular classroom activities, they mentioned that they were not motivated. Why do you think this happened?
In which part, Professor? Sorry. What specifically?
Like you have different charts, right? Well, so
Yes.
some
Yes.
of them mention that, for example, when they use songs they are more motivated, but in other
Mm-hmm.
activities they are more neutral, they are not as motivated.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you have these differences? I mean, talking about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, what would be the conclusion about this?
In my opinion, I would say that it is because they what the results showed was that they weren't really motivated, or the the motivation for next class wasn't really there, but they were motivated whenever they would use, for example, PowerPoints, or when they wanted to know, for example, the lyrics of a song. So what does what can we conclude from that? That the teachers are not including those materials enough in their classes, I would say. I
And
think that's why it's not consistent.
I think they also find it more enjoyable with songs and audiovisual materials rather than just written materials, or yeah, written materials. I think they prefer the other ones because they're more fun for them.
If you have to link these results with the theory of an extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, how would you do that? I mean, what can you say about your results and extrinsic and intrinsic motivation theory?
Well, I would say that they are not really getting enough extrinsic motivation. So these results are solely based on how they feel from the motivation they have from within, whether it is to get, better at English, or they're really interested in it. So I think they're, as I said, they're not really getting that external motivation enough.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to go more into the personal aspect of your paper. Are you working? Is either of you working at this school? How did you get access to the school?
No, I'm not working there, but that was the school I used to go to. That's where I graduated. So that's why I have this connection with the school.
Okay, so you're part of the alumni. Okay,
Yeah,
and
I'm part of the.
do you have any? Does any? Something's wrong with my English today. Um, does either of you have any experience teaching teenagers?
I taught one teenager, but only that.
One on one.
So yeah.
And
Okay.
I have particular students which are teenagers. And I also used to be a substitute teacher for a school in which I was with the high schoolers.
Okay, so where I was going with these exploratory questions is whether you could compare your findings with your actual experience in teaching teenagers.
Uh, yes, 100%. It wasn't, the results weren't really surprising to me. I think that when teaching high schoolers, teenagers in general, it's hard to get to them. For example, one of my students, she doesn't want to learn, she doesn't really care about English, but her mother wants her to learn. So I go anyway. And the only way to get her attention is through videos. Because, for example, now I'm working with kids, and it's the same thing. You have to have videos or images, you have to use any sort of visual that you can to get their attention. because teenagers are sometimes hard to get to when they are not really open to learning a language.
Yes, it's a tough experience. Okay. Bueno, Ale, would you like to add anything else?
Yes, that when I was teaching that teenager, I was using songs, and it's really useful.
Okay. Bueno, I think if the other members of the board have no further questions, then we can ask the ladies to leave the call and then we'll call them back. Would you agree?
Yeah, just one last question. Going back to the difference between male and female or gender differences, you mentioned at the end like a suggestion to use like a gender tailored support or approach, and before that, addressing this issue, you talked about maybe choosing topics that are more interested for boys who are the ones that show lower results. So, what could you do, or what could teachers do to actually put into practice when you talk about gender tailored support or approach?
Well, when I was thinking about this, I didn't want to, put boys like football and girls like, I don't know, dancing, for example. I didn't want to see it that way. So I just, the only thing that came to mind was, for example, um, looking for example, if you want to try with comprehension, we could, for example, use news about, for example, the world of sports in general. Not saying, oh, let's see football, and then tomorrow we'll see about boy bands. No, try to each class, whatever whatever you are going to teach for that class, try to look for different sort of topics, not just, for example, only sports, only songs, only, try to look for a variety of options that could be interesting for both groups of people. And also the equal participation in class. Try to do activities that involves everyone. So
Yeah,
that's
encourage
another way.
collaboration in
Yes,
between boys and girls as well.
I would say that would be the way to imply that during classes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, Professor.
Nisa Limben?
No more questions.
Okay. So, ladies, we're going to ask you to please leave the call and we'll call you back through the group when we're ready to close the defense. Okay?
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Welcome. Welcome back. Now, the president of the board will give you some closing words and will give you your final grade. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
So, does it have to be in English and in Spanish?
I think in
Do you
English
know
it's better.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for your commitment to this work and the presentation. I mean, all of us consider this topic quite relevant. Um, so, thank you very much again for your effort working on that. We have all agreed that based on the analysis the paper and your presentation, and overall mark is a 4. So, well, congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're very
Felicidades,
grateful.
colegas. Señoritas licenciadas, you've done it. Too bad we don't have the cap to throw it around, but
Yes.
you can register for the graduation probably for next year and stop by the ISL office next week to check your paperwork because now you are entitled to have your diplomas to start with the process since you have completed all of the requirements to be licenciadas en lengua inglesa. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you
We're
so
proud
much.
to call you our colleagues.
We want to
Thank you
ask
so
you
much.
if you're going to the university tomorrow because we want to give you something.
Oh, I'm there on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Ah,
Okay,
okay.
we
I
will
have to
leave
be
it
there
with.
next Monday.
Okay, sure. We'll leave it with Nilda then. It's
Thank
just
you.
a little
Yes,
thank you
it's for
for.
all of you, by the way.
Thank you
Yes,
so
it's just a
much.
little thank you for guiding us. Because as you may know, maybe the first draft wasn't that
The
great.
best.
Thank you. Thank you for being there and thank you for supporting us.
Yes.
It's done,
Thank you.
ladies. So enjoy the rest of the night. Go celebrate with your families. Drink some bubbly drinks, not coca, please. Something else to celebrate. And well, I think we can cut the recording here. Hang on one second. So good night to everyone. I'm going to cut the recording. Okay.